AstrologyUniversellc LLC, back with another live stream video. I'm gonna do more and more of these as the summer rolls through because with all this astrological information I have and practice on a daily basis, I need to get what I have learned off my mind. And this is what these talks are gonna be for. If you wanna find me, search up Astrology Universe LLC on TikTok, CDESIR 100 on Facebook and Instagram. That's where y'all gonna find me. You're gonna see all my posts. But for right now, let's go into the talk. And I'm just getting straight into it. This is gonna be more personal. This is gonna be how I just spit off the dome and see how the ideas bounce. And I ain't gonna lie to y'all. What I've come to realize with astrology is you're not always gonna be happy. You are not always going to be happy. And matter of fact, the moments where you're not going to be happy, you can see coming. You can already tell in advance using astrology when you're going to run into those moments where you're going to be a little bit more depressed, Pisces. You're going to be a little bit more tired, Neptune. Where you're going to be a little bit more quiet, 12th house. These are all things that are going to point towards those keywords I have just mentioned. All that energy in that area. Some schools of astrology might even say Jupiter. Some schools like Vedic astrology. I'm studying the Yugas. You should possibly get this book. It'll open up your mind just a little bit. But I will never tell you there's only one be-all book that you should get that's going to teach you astrology. There's other books too you can get over time and other ways of learning. But when it comes to astrology and understanding how it works, no matter what school of astrology you study, there are some fundamental rules that you will never break. There are some fundamental things that will never change. How astrology is done in the eastern part of the world is different from how it's done here in the western part of the world. And both systems are tens of thousands of years old. Some may say that the Eastern system is only around 6,000 to 8,000 years. They would say that. But astrology has been around forever, and some of the principles they teach you are never changing. I just find it weird sometimes how in modern day society people are trained to believe and think only for themselves and only what immediately is going to affect them in their lives. For example, everybody is concerned about their monetary situation, their relationships, and how they are viewed by the public. Monetary situations being Taurus, second house. Relationships, you could also say seventh house, also ruled by Venus. And potentially you could say the 10th for your career, public status, Saturn, right? Let me show y'all what I put the other book. You're right, Saturn. More and more books you can get. And trust me, I haven't even read all of them yet. I'm just showing you the ones I bought. Because you'll never be done with astrology. But going back on topic, you find yourself in situations, the more and more you do astrology, where you realize you get to understand life more. You get to understand other people, other people's perspectives more. You just come to know why things are the way that they are. And it can get dark, Saturn. It can get dark at times when you decide to really put everything that you know to the test and really come to understand how the world fully works. Because not everybody's meant for that. Not everybody is meant for that. And as I'm bringing this up, it's kind of funny to me too how people change depending on the situation that comes to be. Nobody's ever consistent at everything. And you might be like, Chris, what do you mean? For example, off camera, I can spend hours coming up with brilliant ideas related to astrology. As soon as I get on camera, my words are stuttered, cluttered. It doesn't matter if I'm in front of 100 million people, one person, or by myself recording and making a live video. For some reason, I can't naturally just talk the way that I talk. And there are many reasons for that. One of the main reasons is you can't say whatever you want online in this modern day era. You're gonna get your video taken down, demonetization, people gonna look at you weird or funny. There are certain areas in your life where you have to change how you act. Nobody is the same way exactly 100% of the time in every single last scenario situation. That's not how life works. You change with your environment. You change to fit the situation best. You're not gonna act some way in a situation that's gonna make you feel detrimented. You're not gonna put yourself into a situation where you're gonna lose out on gaining a benefit. Nobody does that. Everybody's gonna pick the better option. Everybody's always gonna pick the better option. And growing up, I never understood that. I never understood, for example, why people would always choose the better option for them versus the better option for the collective. Why do people choose the scenario that will give them the most benefit versus a scenario that will give everybody a benefit? In a school of thought, what I'm talking about could be considered a communist type of thinking. And we do live in a socialist capitalistic society where do as much as you can for yourself, leave everyone else out. We do live in that society. And to that I say, still, I always questioned it, questioned it, questioned it, questioned it. I always had questions. I had a million questions. I still have a million, if not a billion questions at this point. Hyperbolizing, obviously. But I got a lot of questions. And when it comes to astrology, I finally got the answers. I finally got the answers to life's biggest questions. And it's paining me right now because I'm trying to, and it hurts really that I want to just explode right now and just start talking about a million different things because my mind is sporadic like that. I can talk about anything really and make it come back to a overarching topic or theme. When I was younger, I've always had the natural ability to craft stories or templates in my head. I can take characters from different TV shows, different pieces of media, and come up with scenarios in my head that would put those two together and have it be a fantastic scene. Just yesterday, I was in another room in my house talking about how what would happen if Madara Uchiha from the anime TV show Naruto were to go 1v1 with Darth Vader from Star Wars. And I had made an elaborate scenario in my head. And it would have ended in a draw. It would have ended in a draw. But the way that it ended in a draw, and no, the fact that it ended in a draw isn't the point. is how we got to that conclusion. I had them fighting, throwing out all their abilities, doing all these showcases and feats, all in my head. And I could sit down and explain the entire scenario situation to you, but I come to realize that's not what I've come here to do. That's not the main thing I've come here to do. And that's when I started to realize people can't do everything. People can't do everything. You can't do everything. There are certain things you will come into this life with the natural ability or the fortitude, determination to be able to do. People cannot do everything. I grew up watching all sorts of TV shows with larger than life characters. A lot of them were cartoons, animation pieces with characters who were drawn human, doing simply unhuman things, flying, teleporting, feats of strength that are just not possible, lifting mountains, boulders. And as a youth, as a child, you don't know any better. You think you can do it all. You think you can do everything. You think you can do everything. You think you can be a movie star, astronaut, police fighter, judge, um, lawyer. You can't do everything. There's not enough time in the day for you to literally do everything by yourself. It's not enough time. Most people don't even know how many minutes there are in a day. Go Google it. Most people can't even count how many minutes there are in a day. But yet we still believe, or I have found myself into a space over these past couple of years. If you've been on this YouTube channel, you would know me as the motivational speaker. I started off as a motivational speaker. I started off promoting books like Think and Grow Rich. I started off this channel promoting books like that. How to do other books like, I thought I had more books than this. Interesting. Huh. I must have read a lot of them online, like PDFs. Copywriting secrets, how to make money online, doing things like that. Russell Brunson, Ty Lopez and them. I started off with the motivation. I started off with the telling people believe that you can do whatever that you want to do and you can do everything that you can do. But as I got older and I realized that I couldn't even do that myself, at first I used to think I was inferior because of it. I would look at people like Arnold Schwarzenegger and be like, oh, this man was a bodybuilder turned movie star turned governor. And I'm just like, that's crazy. I wish I could do all that. Some people can do a lot more, but even Arnold Schwarzenegger can't do everything. And you'd be like, what do you mean? He's not a basketball player. He's not a football player. He's not a cook. He's not a comedian. Well, you said you could make a claim he's been in funny movies. All right, I'll give you that. You see? We can compare ourselves to other people all we want, but at the end of the day, nobody really can do everything and anything. There's not enough time in the day. There's not enough time. And when you come to really, really understand astrology, you come to see why the universe itself made it that way. Why did the universe itself make it that way, that certain people can do certain things and other people can't? I grew up from a religious background. Parents are foreigners to the United States. Not really to this geological landmass and geocoordinate location, but I'll get into that later. But they're foreigners to this country. And the country I come from, or the country they come from, very religious. Very, 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 very religious. So I grew up in a religious background. And I've always had this double dichotomy on life. Because when you come from a certain religion, 12th house, Pisces, right? You see, told you I can always tie it back in. When you come from a certain religion, certain background, certain way of life, certain way of being, you come to understand a bunch of things, or a certain amount of things. You come to understand that what you are taught to believe does not always correlate with what is actually going around you in the actual world. How do I preface this? Your belief in a God, a savior figure, and what those savior figures are supposed to represent or mean does not apply in every situation. And you can see that clearly, clear as day. Clear as day. Clear as day. God does not apply in every scenario. Let me give you some basics or some questions you've probably heard before. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why do bad things happen to good people? That's a question humanity has been asking since the dawn of time. Or better yet, I'll say it this way to make it more relevant. That's the question humanity's been asking for since the time of all these religious figures that you read about or you heard stories from in traditions from the time where they supposedly lived. Whether you believe in them or not, I don't know who's watching this video or what you believe. This video applies to everybody and everything. So as a child, I used to admire these figures more than anything. Your Moseses, because I did come from a Christian background, and if you still see the videos on this channel, I don't think I deleted them. I keep these videos around so I can track my progress, to really see from where I came from to where I really am. From where I came from to where I really am. And I wanted to be so much like these religious figures. I started paying attention to the actual book itself, to the Bible versus the religion, because I wanted to know as much as I could about these religious figures. I'm just very, very knowledge-based person. I like to know. I like to know, and once I know, I like to put in the work. And I came to realize something that hurt me. The more you actually start reading your holy book, the more difficulties you're going to actually have following your belief system. The more time and energy you spent coming to become well read on your belief system, the more challenge and difficulty you're actually going to have with your belief system. I realized that very early on in life. What I was reading or what was being read to me by a pastor, teacher, preacher, whatever the case may be, didn't actually line up with what people believe here today or have been believing for centuries. And I always questioned it. How is that fair? How is that possible? Our belief stems from what we have written and hold sacred in these holy, tablets or whatever. But how come when I actually read them, there's just more tear, there's more difficulty, there's more dissonance when it comes to me in the actual belief system I have. In the story of Adam and Eve, for example, both of them partook, first the woman, then the man, but it doesn't really matter the order. They both partook in it, ate of the forbidden fruit. And it wasn't the fact that they ate the forbidden fruit that got me. It wasn't the fact that they broke a rule of God that got me. When you actually read the book, it's the fact that what did they gain from it? They gained knowledge. They gained knowledge. And once they gained the ability of knowledge, the person or the entity you're supposed to believe in said you can't be here anymore. And kicked them out. There was no, at that time, you know, there was no grounding, go to your room, no dinner tonight for a week, straight, get out, never return. What? Keep in mind, I'm 3, 4 years old. 2, 3, 4 years old, and I'm picking up on these things. While I'm sitting in sermon, everybody's praying, everybody, because you know when you're a person of melanated descent, a negroid, your belief, your churches, your temples are a little bit more active in the prayers and the things like that, and the singing and the dancing, a lot more active. People come for that. People come for that energy. That energy is the type of energy that's gonna make you cry. That's gonna make you, um, 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 feel an emotional tie. That's the energy that makes you feel an emotional tie. When you sit down and you actually listen to what the preacher is saying, or actually saying to you, based on what is actually written in the book, you start to see the world differently, and you can't go back. Years later, tell me why I'm already an adult at this point, legally, 19, turning 20 years old, almost 21. I finally get into astrology, and I see astrology, the study of the entire universe, right? I didn't start off as an astrologer. I started off in a religious background. And most people today believe that if you believe in astrology, you can't believe, or if you believe in religion, you can't believe in astrology. It's like taboo, or it's like that's not something you really talk about. They're right. But let's get into it. Tell me why at this point in my life, so many questions were rising because I went completely down the rabbit hole of reading the book and learning. I went completely down the rabbit hole. Tell me why out of all these years of me not understanding what's going on in the world and always having questions, I end up finding on this niche little thing called astrology, or at least what I think it is at the time. And I find out that writing reading, learning is all given indication by the sign of Gemini. I'm a Gemini. And is ruled by the planet Mercury and the third house. And tell me why religion is Pisces, Neptune, in the 12th house. Also Jupiter. In astrology, that is called a 90-degree aspect. A 90-degree aspect is called a hard aspect, a challenging aspect. It is written in the universe that knowledge or learning automatically makes believing difficult. That's a natural occurrence in this universe. After all those years, tell me how now my mind is blown. They're connected. You can't really separate the two. You can't really separate the two. But tell me how that's actually how the universe works. I'm thinking this entire time, my entire life up until this point, I'm the problem. I'm thinking I'm the problem. Turns out I'm not. Turns out I'm not. Turns out that's just how the world goes. And I'm not gonna lie to you. At first, I didn't want that to be the answer. I'm not gonna lie to you. After enough period in time, I actually wanted it. I wanted to be the problem. I wanted to be like, oh, I'm the problem, and I'm gonna just fix it. I'm gonna change, and I'm gonna change, to get it on the right track or right pace, because I automatically assumed that everybody else was reading just like me. I automatically assumed everybody else was paying attention just like me when it comes to the Gemini aspect of it. I automatically assumed that. Turns out I was the only one really doing it. And I'm just like, wow. Makes sense now. Because there's a lot of passages, since we're talking about it, there's a lot of passages in these holy books that gives a lot of parables, a lot of quotes, a lot of scenarios. And again, if you look at the way society is laid out, if you look at the way society is laid out, and you look at these scenarios that are given in the Bible, they're actually like one in one. They're actually one in one. Because now let's talk about it from the opposite perspective. You're a super religious person. You're a super spiritual person. You didn't come from the religious space. Spirituality and religion are both ruled by the 12th house. Spirituality and religion are both ruled by the 12th house. Depending on what system of astrology you use, some people are going to say Jupiter and some people are going to say Neptune. They're both planets. I mainly use Neptune, but Jupiter does for in fact work. But you got to use it differently to figure it out. Or you got to see it in a different light to figure it out. But no matter what, no matter what system you use, the 12th house is always going to point towards that spirituality portion. So let's just talk about 12th house for a second. And learning, reading. If you don't want to use the word Gemini, use third house. Let's say you're a super spiritual person. You grew up meditating, eating right, you're into chakras, you're into human design, all of these things I used to like post on my channel all the time, especially when I first was starting off with astrology. You're into all of these other spirituality systems. You do traditional herbal healing medicines, things like that. You don't really go to the doctor like that, or you do, and you also take supplements on the side from your local garden, or your remedy shop. You're gonna hate the Bible. You're gonna hate what's written in the Bible, written in the Torah, the Quran, whatever book you have. You're gonna hate it because you're gonna read certain passages and you'll be like, this man, like I just told you earlier, the Adam and Eve story. God, God in the Bible threw them out of heaven just for having knowledge. Because you could look at it the other way too and come to the same conclusion. You could be like, I hate the book. How many stories are there? The book of Leviticus. Nobody talks about the book of Leviticus in churches, temples. Nobody really, especially in the Western Hemisphere, nobody really talks about those books. And the stoning of people, how people were stoned, and then you don't really talk about Noah and his daughters had to, like what he had to do with his daughters, how his daughters had to get impregnated by him. We don't There's certain things in the book that you just don't want to talk about because they're not accepted in society today. They're not accepted. So people just don't talk about them. And I didn't like talk about them either. Because it got to a point myself where I'm just like, since I was so torn before I figured out the astrology, I was so torn between, do I just stick to the religion or I stick to the book? Do I stick to the religion or I stick to the book? You're never gonna get those two energies to be easy flowing. You're never going to get two energies that are naturally 90 degrees away from each other to be anything less than 90 degrees. There's always going to be a challenge. There's always going to be things you can point out in a religious book that are just wrong or no longer applicable. And there's always going to be things in religion you could point out to just be like wrong or no longer applicable either. So when it comes to stories like that in Leviticus, or when it comes to stories like that in the Quran, with like the Prophet Muhammad and one of his wives, Mary, and Joseph, and Mary's true age, people will debate about those things and be like, whoa, we don't do that today anymore. And I say, for the most part, you're right. Those are parts where I would agree with you where the book is wrong. Those are parts where I agree with you where I say either the book is wrong or the book is outdated. It needs an update. I I'm probably gonna be the only person you hear this from, but I'm a person who firmly believes that the literature, the text, the holy books need a update. It needs an update. I believe that so many things have happened over these past 2,000 years. That we need a new verse. We need a new collection of books to describe everything that happened in these past 2,000 years. From the Plato's, the Aristotles, the Crusades, the Aztec, the Mayans, whatever you want to say. I still say this to this day, and I'm always going to preach this. So much has happened in this in between period of time. Slavery, slave trade, all of these crazy things that happened. World War One. We need a new passage. We need a whole new book. We need a New Testament. We need a New Testament. But again, that's gonna cause some challenges, like I just said. That's just gonna cause some challenges to the religion, the ceremonies, the rituals. That's always gonna cause some challenge. And it's a beautiful thing once you finally like can come to understand that. And it also takes a weight off your shoulders because you end up believing, all of this weight is on you and you got to deal with it yourself. When you realize that's the way that the world was designed, it frees you a little bit. It doesn't necessarily make the challenges go away because the challenges are a part of the issue or a part of, part of life, but it just makes you feel better since you understand you don't have control over it. It's not something you have to truly worry about in that sense. And it's small little things like this when it comes to astrology I can talk about for hours, really. It's just that when I'm alone or I'm not on camera, I can think about 100 million things at once because I don't really need to explain it. But I'm always gonna hop on a live stream, always hop on a call because this is some things that you need to talk about. These are things that you need to talk about. It's like you can't have all this knowledge and not want to share it. It's too exciting. It's too mind blowing once you figure it out. I've been doing astrology at a very advanced level for over a year. For over a year, almost a year and a half, and I'm literally mind blown every single day. But I brought up something earlier. Why, for example, can't you talk about, or why is astrology not really preached in religious spaces as well? Astrology is not ruled by Gemini per se, but anything you can say about the third house, you can say about the 11th house. The 11th house is Aquarius. The 11th house is um Uranus or Uranus. I say Uranus. And in certain schools of astrology in the East, is ruled by the planet Saturn. And trust me, when it comes to that, I see astrology being Saturn just as much as I see it being um Uranus. I do. I really do. And I also see it to mean Mercury at other points in times too as well. Trust me. When I say there are so many different infinite ways to play with these basic fundamental rules and come out with a proper answer. But again, there's always rules. You can't just say with astrology you could do whatever you want. Same way in life, you can't just say you could do whatever you want. You have opportunities in front of you that allow you to strive for what you like, for what you want to do, but you can't do everything, like I said earlier. But let me break it down this way. It makes sense you can't do everything. And that's not a negative. When I say things like this, people take it as a negative, as a put down, or you know, something that is, if you're a person all about positivity and doing right things, you'll see this as a negative, as a put down. You don't want to do everything. Ask yourself genuinely, do you want to do everything? Do you really care about skydiving? Do you really care about playing the trumpet, crochet, ballerina, being a ballerina? Do you really care about everything? Do you want to care about everything? I don't. I thought I did. I don't. You don't like everything, Saturn. Do not like Saturn. You don't like everything. So obviously if you don't like something, you don't have interest in it. And if you don't have interest in it, you're not going to want to do it. In the last live I did, I talked about how life's not fair. I talked about how life's not fair. But life makes sense. Life is not fair. But life makes sense. Life is logical. Why can't you talk about astrology when it comes towards religion? The 12th house technically is a universal concept too. There are 12 zodiac signs, 12 houses. Simple. Simple as that, right? But the 12th house really points to the sign that comes before. What do I mean by that? Aries is the first zodiac sign. Pisces is the last zodiac sign. If you were to count the chart going backwards from 1 to 12 to 11 to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, back to 1 again. The 12th house of Aries is Pisces. The sign that comes after Aries is Taurus. What's the 12th house of Taurus? The 12th house of Taurus is Aries. You see what I did there? Every single sign has a 12th house. That's going to be the one that comes right before it. The sign that comes before Pisces is Aquarius. Astrology. And what you call that? You call that a karmic aspect. The sign that comes before also points towards your undoing, what is going to eventually do you in. Because every sign is balanced. Every sign has a positive and a negative. The 12th house points to healing, your belief, your spirituality. But it also points to sickness. It points towards your enemies. And it points towards things that are going to undo you. It points to things that are going to undo you. Think about it this way. If I know exactly what is going on, what do I need to develop a belief for? Belief, 12th house, knowledge, 11th. If I know knowledge, 11th house, Aquarius, right? Astrology, if I know something, why do I need to develop a belief? If I know it, I know this, like I've experienced it before. I have credit, when it comes to something, I know this is how this works. You can't tell me anything different about it. I know I know how it works. When you believe in something, beliefs are not guaranteed. Beliefs point towards, even though I cannot prove this to be true, I will still advocate for it. Like faith, 12th house, faith, belief, same thing. Or they indicate the same thing. I have faith myself. I have faith myself that astrology can point towards things happening as far back as 4.32 billion years ago. Bare minimum. But can I honestly say that I know that? No, I can't. I wasn't alive 4.32 billion years ago. I wasn't alive when the Big Bang started. I wasn't there. I didn't have conscious memory. I'm not that old. Nobody on this planet is. We believe in the Big Bang. We can see evidence of the Big Bang. You know what I'm saying? We can see evidence that would, tell us that at some point in time there was a unanimous start to that universe. Some people call it God. Some people call it the Big Bang. That's a belief. That's a belief. Nobody has definitive proof. We can read it from some books. We learned it from our ancestors. You know what I'm saying? That's an example of a belief. When you don't really know, but you have enough pieces, or with the little pieces that you have, you decide. You make the decision. Yeah, I'm gonna run with this. I'm gonna run with it. That's a belief. Astrology kind of undoes that. There's no need to have there's no need to really believe when you know the answer. I don't need to say I believe if I know. But if you look at it the other way, Aquarius coming first and then Pisces coming after, you could say that what you know is the basis for your beliefs. This time, if you're going from first house to second house, if Aquarius is the first sign, if you yourself are an Aquarius, Gemini, whatever the case may be, whatever your sign is, the sign that comes right after, your second house now, instead of talking from first house to 12th house, now we're just going to go in proper order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Going from your first house, the self, I, you can say that if Aquarius is the first house, you know, or I know, the second house points to your needs. What do you need? What do you value? What do you find value in? What is worth it to you? What do you find worth in? There's another phrase they're saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Not everybody finds the same things of value and worth. And something that is literally garbage to somebody could mean the world to something else, to somebody else. So when it comes to that, isn't what you know also what you based your beliefs on? I can't believe in the flying spaghetti monster if I don't even know the flying spaghetti monster exists. How can you logically say you believe in something if you know nothing about it at all? I couldn't believe in astrology back when I was 4 or 5 years old. I didn't even know it existed. I didn't know anything about astrology. I didn't know astrology, therefore I couldn't even believe it. If somebody teaches you when you grow up about a religious figure, a savior figure, even though you've never met them, you can base a belief on them because you have some knowledge about it. Whether it's true or not, whether it really happened or not, doesn't matter. You know of this story, 12th house, or you have an idea of a story, you have some sort of knowledge on something, therefore you can craft a belief on it. You cannot believe in something you don't know. That's astrological in nature too. You cannot have value, you cannot have worth in something, you know, that doesn't have an effect on your life. The 12th house also points towards debts, who you are indebted to. For example, children are indebted to their parents, especially the mother. Cancer now is the 4th house. It's ruled by the moon. Cancer comes before Leo. Leo is the child. Don't children have to listen to their parents? Aren't children under the guidance of their parents or their guardian? The person that is responsible for taking care of them? This is how I think every single day now because of astrology. And trust me, we have not done any mathematical measure. I've not gotten into any advanced math. It's not really advanced. I've not gotten into talking about any math. I've not talked about how to track any of the planets yourself. I've not talked about how to predict things in your own life. I've not talked about how to do any of those things. This is just me playing with basics that you can find on the internet right now. And if you're willing to expand your mind, if you're willing to be a free thinker, freedom, free Aquarius, 11th house, if you're willing to be a free thinker, you can figure out, you can come to see these things yourself. You can come to see these things yourself. I started off this live with talking about depression, 12th house, somber, cold. And I talked about you can tell when. Now let me give you some astrological method. When you come out the womb, You're not even 1 year old yet. For example, if somebody asks you how old is your infant and you say, oh, my infant is 3 months old or 3 months, obviously you're not 1 year and 3 months old. You are only 3 months. You're not even a full year yet. And as a child, I didn't fully understand that. And some people still to this day, because I remember, I have to keep reminding myself, people don't think like me. I'm a Gemini. I naturally do that. Based on me being born within a certain month, during a certain period of days, or being, actually, let me say it this way, based on me being born within a certain span of time, in between 2 months, defines how I view the world. And that's the same for everybody on the planet. Depending on that date you were born, will define how you view it and how it is viewed by you. 1 second. Let me charge my phone because I gotta make an astrological video on this on my TikTok in about, it's only been an hour. It's only been about an hour. It was 8, 9, in about an hour or two. In about an hour or two. So we still got time. I still got like possibly an hour 30, an hour 40 minutes left before I make that video. And trust me, I need to talk. I need to talk. This is a catharsis, this is a level of catharsis for me. Because don't think because you are an astrologer, don't think because you know everything, doesn't mean that you can stop things from happening. I'm going on a tangent. I'll come back to that. Your baby's a 3 month old. It's not even a year yet. If you really want to start with astrology, or if you really want to understand the world around you, you have to understand how time works. The number one thing is you have to understand how time works. Obviously, I started off this video with the talking and the storytelling because that's how most people learn. That is how most people get into it. This is how you make it easy for people to come in. But all of this stuff that I'm coming to the realization about now has only come after a year of consistently, to this day. Very few moments on and off. At most, I've gone like 2 days without doing any math in astrology. At most. 2 consistent days. Maybe 3 one time. But after that, I'm already like, I'm losing my skill. Because it's like playing an instrument. It's like swimming. It's like basketball. If you don't do it for a long enough period of time, you start to forget. If you stop doing something that you used to do for a long enough period of time, you start to forget. You got to keep doing it or you're going to lose it. Or you're just not going to be as good at it as you were before. Where was I? There's a system in astrology called profections, where you break your life down into years. And each year that goes on, you're switching zodiac sign, or your life is going to be defined by a different zodiac sign. What does this mean? I'm a Gemini, right? Use me as an example. You come out your mother. You take your first breath, your blood oxidizes. You're alive now. Your chart starts. Your chart doesn't start at the moment of conception, not egg the embryo. Your life doesn't start when you're 9 months into the pregnancy. Your life doesn't necessarily start when you come out of the womb. Your life starts, and the chart starts. Your life actually starts, and the universe starts reading you when your blood oxidizes. which means you could come out of the womb completely gray. The doctor has to slap you on the butt a couple of times. You're alive. Or they got to put you on an oxygen machine. Or even you're already, by the time you come out the womb, you're already pink. That's when your life starts. But you are not even a year old yet. You're not even a year old yet. So in astrology, when you're talking about perfections, that first span of time is considered year zero, or considered 0 year, because you're not even a year old yet. And once you hit 1 years old, now you have now switched from the Gemini aspect of your life, or the first aspect of your life, into the second aspect, or year one. Let me let that sink in a little bit, because it's kind of complicated to understand. Let me see if I can illustrate it for you. Let's see if I can make a tiny little illustration. I am not the best drawer, but this will do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's gonna look something like this, right? Hope you can see my handwriting. Let me make this easier to read. You're just born. This is 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You're just born. You're 0. You're 1 month old, 2 months old, 3 months old, 4 months old, 5 months old, 6 months old, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 months old, 11 months, 29 days, and 29 days and what? Yeah, just about. I don't want to give you the answer to how many minutes are on a day. I told you to Google that. But you're like a minute off from your birthday, or you're a day off from your birthday. Oh yeah, let me say it this way: 364 days. Now you're off from your birthday. Now you're a year old. Now you're a year old. Do it again. Add a year. 2 years old. Do it again. 3 years old. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Simple as that. Simple as that. But what most people don't understand, and this is the part that confused me, what most people don't understand is this. You see, when you're just born, you're in your first year. When you turn 1 year old, you're in your second year of life. At 2, you're in your third year of life. At 3, you're in your fourth year of life. 4, 5, 6, 7, or 4, let's see, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7. You see how that works? You're in your first year of life, but you're only a couple months old. You're in your, you turn 1 year old, but you're in your second year of life. This is the part that confuses most people, because most people are taught it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's the way school systems are taught, will teach you. That's the way that most school systems will teach you, especially when you're young. Most school systems don't really go over or stress the need to start with the number 0. Some people are literally walking around believing that 0 isn't even a number. 0 can point to nothing, but 0 in itself is a number. It's called base 10 mathematics. 0 through 9. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is called base 10 mathematics. Base 10. But I wasn't, you weren't, you, that's not the first thing you're taught in school. It's first thing you're taught is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They give you a little nursery rhyme attached to it. And that's the case. They don't teach you 0, 1, 2, because that's actually how you're supposed to learn. That's actually how it works. But in terms of astrology, since we're talking about years, an amount of time must be passed for a year to even become a thing. But that's enough for the breakdown. Watch the video again if you really want to figure out what I just said. But for right now, keep aligned with the concept. That's enough of me bashing on the school system. Sagittarius, 9th house. And funny thing too, that I didn't realize either. I used to hate school. I used to hate school. I used to hate school because the same problems I had with religion, I would have with school. Or the same problems I had with the Bible, I would have with school. Turns out also, the sign of schooling is 90 degrees away from the sign of learning. You see that? Schooling, the place where you go to get educated. The place where you go to get educated has a natural 90-degree aspect, natural challenging aspect to learning itself, to reading itself, to actually comprehending itself. So when people say you don't really come to school to learn, they're not wrong. It's not that you can't learn in school. It will always, always, always has been, always will be a challenge. Always has been, always will be a challenge. These are the fundamentals you cannot break. That 1 to 12, that 0 to 12 I taught you, or 0 to 11, which would be base 12, can't break that. That's the constant that you can rely on. That's the constant that you can rely on. And having that be the case, when you turn 11 years old, you're going to be in your 12th house. Remember the perfections I literally just showed you? When you turn 11 years old, you're going to be in your 12th house. When you turn 12, you come back to your first house. When you spin the wheel, let's say you live long enough, right? When you spin the wheel, you're going to come back to being in your first house. So you are literally, you act the exact same way you did on the day you were born on your 12th birthday. Basically. 0. And you act the same way. The only difference is you are older now and you have more responsibilities. But you are Personality-wise, the exact same way you were when you were a baby, not even a year old yet. You're the same exact way personality-wise. Not ability-wise, because a baby can't do much besides cry and, and laugh. You know what I'm saying? But personality-wise, some babies are more quiet than others, some are more lively than others, some babies are smarter than others. Yeah. There's no one universal thing for anything. There's actually 12 types of everything. Think about it. How do we tell time? Don't we have a 12-hour clock? 12-handed clock? Even if you do military time, 100 hours to 2,300 hours. To 24 hours in a day. Everybody knows that. I don't need to ask you that. But you can even break up the 24 hours into 12 a.m., 12 p.m. Nothing I'm telling you we don't use on an everyday basis. It's just things that people don't regularly think about. Gemini. And not every Gemini thinks the way I do. Not every Gemini does the thing I do. I'm actually making a series right now. And if you go check out my last 2 videos on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, I broke down Aries. I literally broke down, depending on what days you were born, what type of Aries you're gonna be. Because most people are gonna say, are you a March Aries? Are you a April Aries? Are you a April Taurus, or are you a May Taurus? Are you a May Gemini or a June Gemini? People think there's only 2 types. There are 12 types. And depending on which days you were born will determine what type you're gonna be. That's Vedic astrology. That comes from the Eastern school. It is from their breakdown that my Shifu, my teacher, broke it down for me to understand that. So, when it comes to depression, going back to my original topic at the beginning of the video, you're gonna go into your 12th house at your 11th year, or you're at 11 years old. You're gonna be there again at 20, because 22, you're gonna be at 23. You're gonna be there at 23. Yep, you're gonna be there again at 23. 11, 23, 35, 12, 0, 12, 24, 36, 12, 24, 36, 47. These are all years that I'm literally listing out to you. You're gonna be in your 12th house. And depending on your zodiac sign, what did I teach you earlier? Your 12th house changes depending on your zodiac sign. As a Gemini, sun sign, my 12th house is going to be Taurus. My solar return, I don't say the word birthday anymore. You're only born one time. My solar return is in 3 days. We're about to be in Gemini season. Taurus season is over. We're at 28 degrees of Taurus. In 3 days is going to be my solar return. And I do this every time around my solar return. I always reflect on the year that came up, and this was a super emotional year for me. It was an emotional year, and at the same time, it was a year where I really did focus on. I was more aggressive this year. I was more action oriented, more aggressive this year as well. And why can I say that? I am in my 22nd. No, I'm in my, what would that be? 23rd. I'm in my 23rd year. I'm in my 23rd year, but I'm 22. I am in my 23rd year, but I am 22. I'm next one to be in my 24th year, but I'm going to be 23. And I'm only talking about sun signs right now. There's other ways you can read yourself too. But looking at my sun sign and how that's playing out, being a Gemini, your 12th house is going to be Taurus, which means money, resources, values. These are all things that you can heal you. Making money can heal you. Material sensation, satisfaction is Taurus. To be satisfied in general is Taurus. It can mean healing through satisfaction, or it can mean money or lack of it can depress you, because you got to keep it balanced on both sides. You got to keep it balanced. And I'm not trying to talk too much about the planets. This is already over an hour long. You see how astrology can do for you? It's already over an hour long. That's why I really do preface when I say I wish I could even tell you everything about astrology, because I do care about astrology more than anything. Everything else bores me because it's simple. Astrology is infinite, so you can talk about it forever. You'll never learn it all. And everybody says about, oh, Geminis are two-faced. Nah, not necessarily. Geminis are sporadic. They're all over the place. They can never finish a thing. That's not wrong. That's not wrong. Geminis are amazing at starting things. Damn near impossible to finish. So what would be the best thing for a Gemini? Or at least what I think would be the best thing for a Gemini. Because what kind of Gemini am I? I'm a Gemini born at the beginning of Gemini season. If you're born within the first 2.5 days, you're a pure Gemini. That's me. I'm born within the first 2.5 days. 2.5, it's not even 2 days flat. So it means 24 hours, another set of 24 hours, and then 12 hours. I'll do the math for you. That's 60 hours. That's, 24, 48. Yeah, that's 60 hours. So there's overlap depending on what day. Same way people think you're a double cusp baby, it's impossible. You are either one or the other. It's just that you don't have the ability to know the difference between the days or the dates to tell specifically which sign you are. But you can't mix it up. A Gemini is not a Cancer is not a Gemini. An Aquarius knowledge is not belief, Pisces. An Aquarius is not a Pisces, and a Pisces is not Aquarius. You can't. It's impossible to mix it up by the laws of geometry. You can't mix it up. I only have to ask you about 3-4 questions, and I'll know. And I'll know which one you are. It's impossible to mix them up. Any sign. That's not how it works. So even though I'm not in my 12th house yet, the energy transfer over is never, you gotta understand, this template that I'm using to describe astrology is just that, a template. The universe isn't a perfect circle. The universe spirals. We are forever spiraling in this universe. We're spiraling. It's a spiral. Astrology will give you a template that shows a perfect circle. Because a perfect circle is close enough. It is close enough to that spiral that life is. And the energy kind of flows over a little bit. The closer you get to a date, the closer you get to a certain energy, you can feel the transfer coming over. I'm at this point where I'm so close to my 23rd year. For these past couple of months, I've been feeling it. I've been feeling it. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it has been feeling more towards the depressive side, the somber side, when it comes to these things. But you gotta understand, I'm gonna be like this. I'm gonna be in my 12th house energy. I'm gonna be in my Taurus phase for a whole year. And in astrology, a year is not 365.258 days. No. No. I'll tell you this one for free. A year is 360 degrees on the dot in astrology. Not days, not minutes, not hours. You can equate those things to equal a degree. But a year is 360 degrees, 0 minutes of arc, 0 seconds of arc exactly. Every single year without fail. That's the fundamentals, the basic Saturn that allow me to make these predictions, that allow any astrologer to make these predictions. But no astrologer will be ever able to predict everything 100% at a time without fail. Because the 12th house also points to being wrong, to making a mistake. It points to forgetting things too. It points to lack of memory. It points to your memories, and it points towards your lack of memories or to forget. You know how crazy that is? You actually forgetting something is already included in the wheel. It points to you not knowing things, like you legitimately don't know. Aquarius is, I didn't expect that. You're planning for something and something unexpected happens. Something suddenly unexpected happens. Like you had an idea of what could have happened, but something unexpected happening. Pisces is straight up, I have no idea. I had no clue whatsoever. So when I look at the chart, when I look at astrology, and I see Neptune is about to come back and make a transit in my personal life, I literally do not know if that's going to point towards, it's literally in itself, I don't know if that's going to be music, me believing something, me forgetting something, me making a mistake somewhere. Your shortcomings are written into the chart. I hope you understand this, right? You cannot, it is literally impossible to be perfect because your shortcomings are written into your life, are written into the play of reality. Do you know how crazy that is? It's already been preset by the grand creator. It's been preset by the grand creator. It's been preset by the grand creator when you're going to have your shortcomings. It's mind-boggling. I said I was only going to talk about sun signs, so I'm going to leave it at that when it comes to that. Anything else I wanted to talk on, speak on, give y'all some knowledge, break down on? Because we really talked about today, this time, the 12th house. We talked about the mutable signs, actually. We talked a lot about the mutable signs. We didn't talk about every mutable sign. We're missing one, but we talked about Pisces, mutable sign. We talked about Gemini, mutable sign. We talked about Sagittarius, ninth house, Jupiter, mutable sign. The only thing we didn't talk about is Virgo. You know what? I might as well bring it up. Virgo. What's Virgo? The final mutable sign, the final square, right? The final square. Virgo is the worker, the working class, the slave, the accurate one, the correct one. It points towards the one who's always going towards improvement, the nitpicky one, the petty person. It also points to the master and the slave. So let's talk about another challenge I had in the Bible that didn't really, concur with society and reality. At least here in the 21st century in the West, we don't like to talk about indentured servants or how they're now portraying it in schools. We don't like to talk about indentured servants. But if you read your holy tablets and books, weren't you calling your savior figure, weren't they referring to the savior figure as the master? They were referring to the savior figure as the master. And we were supposed to be the master's internal or eternal servants, indentured servants. So in real life, we don't like to talk about indentured servitude, right? But we believe in being indentured servants towards the and people used to wonder why I am the way that I am. People used to wonder why I am the way that I am. Because when you grow up with this kind of mindset, you can't really talk to anybody about it. You can't. How do you explain this? Without astrology, without understanding the universe as a whole, without understanding the bigger picture, how do you really explain this? I couldn't cry for help or cry for answers because people couldn't give them to me. They didn't have this. Astrologers to this day do not have this level of understanding of the chart that I'm talking about. To this day, the average astrologer does not have the level of understanding. Even though I'm in a niche field, astrology is already a niche field in this modern day and era here in the West, bare minimum, already. Even though I'm in a niche field, I'm the niche person in the niche field. I'm always the standout. Aquarius, Gemini. Anything you can say about Aquarius, you can say about Gemini. I'm always the standout. It doesn't matter how standout I try to put myself into. I'm always a standout. The standout amongst the standouts. The standout in the regular scenario. Just the standout. And I don't feel bad about that anymore. I don't feel bad about that anymore. I just don't. I just don't. I just don't. Because it's not up to me. The universe made us all this way. Does it make the problems that are already there go away? Obviously not. But I rather understand that this is just the way that it is. And to know that the problems don't last forever. As time moves forward, you move in and out of problems. As time moves forward, you move in and out of squares into trines. What are trines? When you enter a sign of the same element in a simple context. Air signs get along with air signs. Fire signs get along with fire signs. I didn't say that in order. With my Virgo rising, Virgo ascendant having let me say it correctly. Fire signs get along with fire signs. Earth signs get along with earth signs. Air signs get along with air signs. And water signs get along with water signs. So remember that wheel I told you? So when you turn 12 years old, you return back to the same element. Not only the same sign, you return back to the same element. But if you really are paying attention, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. At 4 years old, you're going to go into another sign of the same element. In your 5th year of life, when you're 4 years old, you're going to return back to a sign of the same element. And then you go again. 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And at 8 years old, you're going to return to another sign of the same element. So think about it. 0, 4, 8, and then you come back around at 12. So 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, wow, 32. And I wish I could tell you my excitement. As I'm teaching this to you right now, I'm realizing this my damn self. As I'm teaching you this right now, I'm realizing this my damn self. These are all ideas and concepts that I learned from my veteran teacher. These are all ideas and concepts. I'm not even done learning. I'm only at level 2. I need to come back and do level 3 eventually, but right now I need to get my monetary situation in check. So I'm building a brand. And technically I've always been building a brand. I've been building a brand long before I started astrology. Just now I found my niche, and I found the one thing that I actually have full interest in. The social media marketing and all that stuff I was pushing in the past, in those past videos, I didn't care for it. I really didn't. That's why I don't do it anymore. The concept of marketing in general is something you're always going to need, but marketing the plumbers, marketing the carpenters, I don't care about that. It's not me. It's not me. I'm an intellect, a nerd. Some senses a geek as well. I mean, I know how to do. Trust me, I can do carpenting. Trust me, I come from like I said in the beginning, a foreign nation background. I come from people that come from a third world country. All they know how to do is construction. I can put shit together. Trust me, if push comes to shove. Virgo, the worker, working class, carpenter, the master, the savior figure in the Bible was a carpenter and was also considered a master. And I am a Virgo rising. So trust me, I can do that. But your drive, your fun, your motive comes from your sun sign, not your ascendant. Your ascendant is who you are. Is basically is who you are. It's your body, it's your face, it's your body, it's who you are. But what you come here to do, what you drive for, your passion, what's gonna how you act, your personality wise, that is the sun sign. That's gonna be your sun sign. You come here to do that. But you were born your ascendant. That's how that works. So when it comes towards, lost my train of thought. So when it comes towards, for example, knowing your, let's go back into talk about ascendant for a bit. So when it comes back to knowing your ascendant per se, when I talked about your sun sign and how you can use perfections, or you can figure out depending on what year of life you're at, there you go, I figured it out. You can figure out what years you're going to have that are going to generally point towards hardships, and you could figure out generally what years in your life are going to point towards when you're going to have a good time. So when you're a baby, everybody has fun as a baby. You can't tell me there's a baby that didn't have fun. Doesn't matter how bad the baby situation was. Babies by definition are nothing but dopamine. All they know how to do is have fun or cry. And even when they're crying, as soon as they're done, they go back to having fun. So at 0, so when you're not even a year old yet, you're only a couple months, in your 4th year, or at 4 years old, 8 years old, 12-year-old, 16 years old, every set of 4 years, you will have a good time. Or that year is generally going to be a good year, no matter what. When the universe throws you good times, you can't deny it. Same way when the universe throws you bad times, you can't deny it either. And then you got points in the middle. Every 2 years or so. 2nd year, 4th year, 6th year. Well, 2nd year, 6th year, 10th year. These are going to be situations where you're going to go after things that you like, things that acquire to you, your monetary situation, building yourself, your skills, your profession. Then you're going to go to your reputation, your accomplishments. I can teach this stuff and still learn at the exact same time. This is why I do astrology. This is why I do it. Because I don't got to worry about surpassing my master or surpassing astrology in general, because you're never going to do that. You will never learn everything that there is to know about astrology. The one thing I don't like is when people, for example, get to attach to it to the point where they think their one method is the one and only method that could be. That in itself limits yourself. Aquarius, astrology is freedom. It points towards freedom, to be free. Don't ever limit yourself. But I can understand why certain people do limit themselves. Saturn is limitations. Saturn is restrictions. And in certain schools of astrology where they didn't even use outer planets like Uranus, they use Saturn. So I understand that too. Why you can get into arguments with some people, why they say you can't break these astrological rules. I didn't break any astrological rules. Saturn is discipline. Saturn is consistency. Saturn is rules and regulations. There are rules you got to follow. Aries comes before Aries comes before Taurus. Taurus comes before Gemini. Gemini comes before Cancer. That's how it's always going to be. You're never going to skip a season. You're not going to start off at March 21st, Aries season, and then the next day is going to be April 25th. Nobody thinks like that. That's not possible. That's not possible. That's not possible. There are certain rules and fundamentals. That is what Saturn should mean when it comes to astrology. But when you use Saturn in the negative aspect when talking about astrology and use it to mean limitations, my one school, my one field of astrology is the one and only be all to learn astrology, you have an ego to you. And if anybody knows me and my content, especially when it comes to this past year, I've been known as a terrorizer, snapping back at anybody or anything, man, woman, child, scientist, whatever the case may be. I snap at those people because you don't know what harm or damage that you're doing. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. And it's been enough time that I can talk about this now. YouTube won't strike me down. When we were in the middle of the 2020 coronavirus incident, that's when I first got into astrology. That's when I started taking it seriously. And there was this one astrologer. There was like one or two astrologers that I was following, mainly before I met the current community that I'm currently in. There was one or two regular astrologers or just average astrologers. One of them I still talk to this day. The other one I don't even associate with anymore. I bought that original astrologer's course, and I paid for the subscription services, and I watched basically every video they released every day for like 6 to 8 months. Outside of the basics you got on the internet, I didn't learn a damn thing. I didn't learn outside of the basics you could learn on the internet. I didn't learn anything. And when I found that and when I caught that astrologer on a live stream on their own personal website, it wasn't YouTube, it wasn't Instagram, it wasn't Facebook. It's not anybody you would currently know. When I went to that particular astrologer's website and they were talking to somebody, they were talking to a friend of theirs. A friend of theirs asked them a particular question about astrology. It was pertaining towards, the coronavirus situation. And she basically asked them, can you see it coming in your chart? If you're going to catch it, if you're going to need to take a shot or not. He stuttered. And he came up with an answer to basically say no. And at that point in time, even though I couldn't prove it yet, I knew he was lying. I knew at that point in time he was lying. You can't tell me that I'm talking at this point in time, I'm big into manifestation. I'm big into manifest your dreams. I'm big into preaching on my channel, on this same channel. I'm big into learn your God complex, learn about Heru, learn about Osiris, learn about the ancient gods of the world, learn how you can levitate, move up to your third, fourth chakras, fifth, sixth dimensions. I was big into this stuff at this time. And I had some big name YouTubers that I was making videos with. Some of them, they were mostly around my age. So there were a bunch of new upcoming kids. And I was even feeding them information. I was giving them information. I was talking to them off the screen, everything. And guess what? That was one of the best years of my life. I was 20 years old. And what did I just teach you? At 20 years old, you're in a trine. You're in a sign that is going to be complementary to your own. That was one of the best years of my life. See how that works? And the time I found this astrologer that I'm talking about was 21. That's a square. That's hardships. That's difficulties. That's hardships. That's difficulties. So when I heard him say those things, it made me realize to why I even got into astrology in the first place. I'm big into manifestation, so I'm thinking at this point in time, nobody can tell me. I'm big into books like, what is that one book? um not Think and Grow Rich, it's like Habits or something. There was this one book that everybody was recommending to read, and I can't remember what it was called. And I still recommend people to read it. But it was really about you control your life, you control your destiny. Nobody else can predict that for you. And that was my mindset at the time. And then I really started taking astrology seriously, and then I started to say to myself, wait a minute, something's not adding up. These two things don't line up exactly the same way. You can't tell me I can manifest anything I want in my reality. Me, like I'm in full control of my reality and I can manifest everything I want. You can't tell me that and at the same time tell me that depending on the day I was born would describe my personality traits, my feelings, um, um, my likes, my dislikes, my interests. How? How am I the God of my own universe? How are you gonna tell me based on the day I was born, all of that stuff was already determined for me? Because that's all I know about astrology. I didn't know you could predict things to the day. I didn't know you could predict your family members, events happening. I didn't know you could do all of that at that point. That's all I knew, the basics that everybody starts off and following up with. How are you gonna tell me, somebody who's big in the manifestation in your own life, how are you gonna tell me with my Virgo criticizing having ass? How are you gonna tell me based on the day I was born, you can tell me all about my personality and traits and all my likes and dislikes? I don't believe you. I went into astrology kind of trying to debunk it. Kind of trying to debunk it. And the more I got into it, I realized I couldn't. I realized I couldn't. So now I'm at a crossroads with my content. Do I keep just making pure spirituality video content, pure you know, ancient Egyptian lore breakdown videos on what I find, or do I now start stepping into this astrological field and telling people, yo, you could really see some things about your life, your family life, and everything else that most people aren't really talking about? And I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. I really didn't. I just said, you know what, I'm gonna just keep going and whatever happens, happens. And there were so many, all of those friends that I had that were doing spirituality content, that were doing astrology at the time, they all fell off or they disappeared from the internet for a good 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. Once I hit that square, that Saturn square at 21, I realized I was really on my own when it came to this astrology thing. I was really on my own when it came to the spirituality thing on the internet. Do I want to quit like everybody else or do I want to keep going? I kept going. And I landed more on the astrology aspect than I did on the spirituality. I have never forgotten anything I learned from the spirituality aspect, never. But it is the astrology that allows me to understand the spirituality at such a much deeper level than I would have ever been able to do. Because I was big into daylight, big into Brother Polite. Before the incident, I was big into um, Young Pharaoh. I was big into all of these well-known names on the internet, all before their breakdowns. All before their breakdowns. And I remember when each and every single one of them had their brands and their names tarnished. I was in the midst of every single last one of them. I was a Young Pharaoh soldier or supporter on the internet. I was big into what happened during that incident. It was rough. It was rough, and it would have made most people quit. I'm telling you, it was rough. But I kept going. But I kept going, and I'm glad I didn't stop. Because that's what allowed me to build my career and build my reputation. But when it comes to back to that first astrologer I was talking about, at that point in time, I was watching him for so long, I started to realize he doesn't really know. Because that's the thing too. When you find yourself interested in a particular person, field, or things like that, the longer you watch them, you come to really understand what they know or what they don't know, what they're gonna talk about and what they don't talk about. I never just rely on a singular person, singular man, singular entity. I have learned to rely on the principles that they're teaching, the fundamentals that they're talking about, because that's universal to everybody. The man, the being will pass one day, but the legacy, the teachings that they leave behind, that's the eternal. That's the eternal part. In the Bible, it says in like the first chapters of Genesis, the word is God and God is the word. Your words, your teachings, your messages, your stories, all the mutable signs, those are the things that pass on over time. You may forget the face, you may forget the person, you may forget the exact scenario of which it happened. But the energy that they brought off, the teachings that they give, those are the things that get written into the hieroglyphs. Those are the things that get written into the papyruses. Those are the things that get made into movies, put into the narratives, or anything A.A. Rashid would say. That is what I've learned too, no matter who I find or make as a teacher now. And that's what I want everybody to take from me. Don't follow me as a person, because you can track people. You can patternize what people are going to do. Take the actions and words that come from that person and run with those things, despite whatever happens to that person or individual. And it's going to work out for you. So I broke away from that astrology. That was the first time I actually went off on anybody, because I addressed that astrologer on the internet about it. Because I was mad, because I'm just like, you can't lie to people like that. And again, I understand, I get it. I understand why you have a brand, you have an image, people trust in you and things of that nature and intent. I get it. But you got to understand, when you yourself decide, when you have a big enough platform, your actions are larger than yourself. Any one mistake you make will people are going to rely on you for it. Whatever you tell people, they're going to just believe in you, because you're supposed to be the source and authority. I can't do everything. I don't necessarily know everything. If I'm going to go to a doctor and I have a really serious injury, I would hope or have faith that the doctor's having a good day, everything is going good for that doctor, and they're going to give me the best breakdown that they can. But if they're having a bad day and they really don't want to deal with me, what am I going to do about it? You on a plane, 50,000, 40,000, 50,000 feet in the air, and the person who was working on the plane that day decided, you know what, I'm having a bad time. I'm gonna put in the gas later or whatever, and they forget to put in the gas in the plane. These are situations you can't control, that you got nothing to do about, but you gotta roll with it. This is why I stress myself out, because everything comes with a price. This is why I will, as a Virgo also points to stress, actively stressing. This is why I stress myself out to be as on point or on key with what I teach or what I bring out to the public, because I don't want to put anybody in a scenario where they're actually done wrong by the information that I gave them, based because, you know, I didn't want to further my own intelligence. I didn't want to admit that I was wrong. Virgo is humble, to be humble as well. Virgo is to be humble as well. I will humble myself at any given point when proven wrong, even if it makes me look bad as an image, because I'm not going to do nobody else wrong like that. And trust me, it's not easy. There's no easy path in life. No matter what you choose or what you do, astrology will teach you. Life isn't fair, but life is logical. There's a sense behind it. There's a sense behind it in what that you do. And the more you come to understand that, and more you come to understand, depending on your sun sign, depending on what hour in the day you were born, is going to determine, for the most part, not all of it, but it's going to determine for the most part what you've come here to do, what challenges you come here to face, and how you're supposed to deal with it. So I'm not necessarily mad at that astrologer anymore for what they did. That astrologer is a Leo. Leo comes before Virgo. The 12th house is what undoes you. So obviously what he was teaching me was going to undo me. That's just natural. Astrology helped me to realize that is just natural. I was going to break off from that person regardless. And even though that person doesn't talk to me anymore and I don't talk to that person, because the second house of Leo is Virgo. The second house points to value. I know that astrologer, even though I have no need to talk to them anymore. I know they value what I did that day. I know they valued my responses to them, my need to get better. Because God, Leo, God needs second house. Virgo, God needs a worker. God needs his indentured servants. God needs that. God finds value in those who are willing to put in the work. But that was the talk for today. I thank everybody else who tuned in for this live, who stayed with me for these almost 2 hours. I gotta go make some content to post on my other pages because this is what I do, and I honestly do enjoy it, no matter how hard it may be. You're gonna get more content like this going into Gemini season. You will see a Gemini video breakdown. I'm gonna end up posting it to the channel as well too, especially since it's my solar return. So that's what I'm gonna do. Catch y'all next time.